Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, first chapter, text number 20. Rajastamobhyam akshiptam vimudham mana atmanaha yachedharanaya dhiro hantiya tatkritam malam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Translation: one's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. Only persons conducted by the modes of goodness can have the knowledge of the supreme truth. Effects of the modes of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. And those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his potential impersonal feature. Generally, the impersonalists or monists are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders unto the personality of Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of Pantheism. Pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed with the absolute by an attitude of service, which is the essential part of living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by his service attitude, and only in that devotional way can the theory of Pantheism be perfected. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this is the first chapter of the second canto, describing the first step in God realization. And this section, this shloka is talking about the modes of material nature, especially the Rajoguna and Tamoguna, and what is the effect of the influence of these modes of material nature, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, and how one can overcome these lower modes of material nature. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. So, the result of influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna is described here, that the mind will be always agitated and bewildered. So that is a condition of most of the conditioned souls in this material world. So they are always agitated by the modes of passion and bewildered by the modes of ignorance. And the solution is also given, because nobody wants to be in such situation where they are always agitated or they are always bewildered. So nobody wants to be in such situation because it doesn't give happiness. So if one has to feel happiness, then he should have some kind of peace of mind. And in these modes of material nature, which is passion and ignorance, there cannot be any peace of mind. And people may be trying different ways and means to become pacified, to have some kind of peace of mind, some kind of happiness, without knowing the real solution. So real solution is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, how one can be have actual peace of mind. So here it is said, but one can rectify such conception by the relation of Vishnu. So when we are in connection of Vishnu or Krishna, then these modes of material nature, which are ignorance and passion, they can be subdued and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. So one can become pacified when the heart gets cleansed of the dirty things. So what are these dirty things? In the purport, Prabhupada is explaining hankering for wealth and women, kama and lobha. So these are the dirty things within the heart of every conditioned soul. So here women means the opposite sex, not specifically women. For the man, woman is woman, and for the woman, man is woman. So the object of enjoyment, the man is trying to enjoy the woman, and woman is trying to enjoy the man. So as long as these modes of material nature, this Rajoguna and Tamoguna exist, one will be hankering for these lower tendencies of wealth and women. And so long these tendencies are there, one cannot be pacified. And how to come out of it? It is only possible when we are connected with Vishnu or Krishna. So Prabhupada is explaining, persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. So if one has to realize God, one has to be situated in that state of God realization, it requires certain qualification. Not anybody and everybody, although they have got the potential, but unless they have this qualification, they cannot remain on the stage of God realization. So there are two stages of God realization. One is the stage of knowledge and another is the stage of realization. So at least one should try to come to the stage of knowledge of God. And that is possible only when these lower modes of material nature, which is Tamoguna and Rajoguna, they are subdued, then what is left is Sattvaguna. Because the living entities, they are always under the influence of these three modes, Rajoguna, Tamoguna and Sattvaguna. When these two are subsided, what remains is Sattvaguna. And in Sattvaguna, one can understand one's position. Who am I? And he can also understand who is God. So it is very important that these two modes of material nature, passion and ignorance, they should be subsided. Only then one can have the knowledge of the absolute truth. So that is the qualification to understand God. The qualification to understand God is that, first of all, these two lower modes should go. Passion and ignorance should go. Without this passion and ignorance removed, one cannot understand God. So one cannot be a bona fide student to be situated in God realization unless these two modes of material nature, which is passion and ignorance, that is subsided. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have the knowledge of the supreme truth. So only when we are situated in the mode of goodness, we can understand what is God. Effects of the modes of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. This we already discussed. And those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his potential impersonal feature. So somebody who is too much attached to this sense gratification, only by constant remembrance of Vishnu, they can rectify their leanings. We understand from the teachings of Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita, teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cause of bondage of the living entity, why the living entity has come into this material world. It is said, Prabhupada quotes, Krishna bhuliya jiv bhogavancha kare, pashate maya tare, jhapatiya dhare. So the cause of we coming into these three modes of material nature is because we have forgotten Krishna. So what is the cause? Because we have forgotten Krishna. That's why immediately the Maya captures. Krishna bhuliya jiv bhoga vancha kare. After forgetting Krishna, what is the next thing? One desires bhoga vancha. One desires sense gratification, independent sense gratification. And the next outcome will be immediately Maya captures that living entity. So how does Maya capture? The Maya captures through these three modes of material nature. So as soon as one forgets Krishna, immediately these three modes will start acting. So now the reverse process, if we have to again come back to our original state, be free from these three modes of material nature, that means we should always remember Krishna. Because that was the cause of us coming into the three modes of material nature. Because we forgot Krishna, immediately Maya has captured us with these three modes of material nature. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. This material energy of mine, which is comprised of these three modes of material nature, it is very, very difficult to surmount. Only those who surrender to me, they can cross over this material energy. So, if we have to again come back to our natural position of always being blissful, joyful, happy, then only solution is that we have to always remember Krishna. Now, there are different kinds of transcendentalists who have realized the futility of this material world, that actually there is no happiness in this material world. And they are categorized as the impersonalists and the yogis, those who are after some kind of material perfections, and the bhaktas, the devotees. And the impersonalist, so for them it is very difficult to accommodate within their brain that God can have a form. Because they have seen, because of this material body, there are so many troubles, so many problems, so many sufferings because of the body. So again body, after getting liberated, God is also having a body, I will also get a body after liberation. So they cannot accommodate immediately that God is having a form and I am also having a form, and that form is now covered, and after liberation I can get back my original spiritual form. So such people who cannot immediately accommodate the form of the Lord, so they are advised because they see this gigantic manifestation, and they want to meditate on either this Virata form or the unmanifested form of the Lord, Avyakta. So they consider that absolute truth is not having any kind of form, it is unmanifest, and sometimes for them even it is difficult to meditate on the unmanifest, because on what to meditate? There is no form, there is no name, there is no activities, nothing is there. So the neophytes, impersonalists, so sometimes they are advised because they need some object for meditation. So they are advised that, and because they don't understand the transcendental forms of the Lord, so they are told that you meditate on this universe. So you meditate on this universe, you see these mountains as the bones of the Lord, of the universal form, and rivers as the veins, and sun and moon as the eyes of the universal form. So they are advised in this way, at least for them to come to the point of understanding of form. From impersonalism, at least let them have some kind of understanding of the form. And in the later part of the purport, here Prabhupada is explaining. And this kind of ideas, these kind of concepts are there in the Vedic literature, and also in some modern philosophers who call this as Pantheism. So Pantheism means they think this universe itself is God. They don't believe in separate existence of God apart from this universe. They are called pantheists. It's European philosophers who have brought this idea, and these kind of things also exist in the Vedic literature. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also we see, and Bhagavad Gita also we see. But here the idea is different. They are seen as the energy of the Lord. In Vedic literatures, these things are seen as the energy of the Lord in connection with the Lord. Just like here also we are seeing, one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu. Although they are meditating on this universe, but ultimately they are connecting it with Krishna. So that is the Vedic idea of universal form for the neophytes, those who cannot immediately appreciate the form of the Lord or the deity form of the Lord and engage directly in service of Krishna. For them this is given. Gradually they will come to that point of understanding the personal feature of the Lord and start engaging devotional service. That is explained here in the purport. Srila Prabhupada is explaining that after many births, such impersonalist, bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate, ultimately they surrender to Krishna only. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Krishna is the ultimate source of everything. Samahatma, such a great soul, is very rare. So this pantheism, in that they worship trees, they worship rivers, they worship mountains, they worship sky, but they have no conception of the personal God. They think that this universe itself is God and we can worship all these things. Now devotees also worship. We also worship Ganga, we also worship Yamuna, we also worship Tulsi, we also worship Govardhana Hill. So our worship is different from pantheism. We are not worshippers like the pantheists. We worship them because they are directly connected with Krishna. We don't worship ordinary trees. We worship Tulsi. Because Tulsi is very dear to Krishna. Krishna always wears the garland of Tulsi. Tulsi is applied on the lotus feet of Krishna. So because Tulsi is directly connected with Krishna, we worship Tulsi. And we worship Ganga because that water is the one which is washed the lotus feet of Krishna. That's why we worship Ganga. We worship Yamuna because Krishna sported in the Yamuna river. We worship Vrindavana forest because Krishna performed his Rasa Leela there. We worship Govardhana hill because Krishna performed wonderful pastimes on the Govardhana hill. So our worship of different manifestation within this material world, which are directly connected with Krishna, is different from these pantheists who worship different material object, thinking them to be God. And here the pantheists, they have impersonal idea of God. So they think that God is not having a form. And here in the purport, Prabhupada is turning the tables on the pantheists. So here Prabhupada says, pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. So the pantheism kind of descriptions which are given in the Vedic literatures, actually they are not meant for a person to become an impersonalist. They don't permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. So here everything is seen as different limbs of the different limbs of Vishnu. So the description of different universal form given in the Vedic literature, it is not meant for creating an idea that God is not having a form, but because God is having a form, now you can see those form in these things. God has got eyes. You can see the eyes as sun and moon. God is having all these personal features. You can understand those personal features through this material universe. This is only for them to give an idea that God is having the form, not to create a conception that God is distributed everywhere and is not having any personal form. That is the idea of impersonalist. They think that the God is distributed everywhere, so he is not having any individual personality. So that is the idea of the universal form. As we see in the next shlokas, Shukadeva Goswami is describing how one can see or meditate on Vishnu through this material universe. And the real solution to come out of these modes of ignorance and passion is to remember Vishnu. or remember Krishna. That is the Bhagavata Vidhi. So Bhagavatam describes Shrunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidhunoti suhrat satam. As we start hearing about Krishna, automatically Krishna start cleansing our heart. And that time what happens? Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhada yaschaye cheta ete ranavidham stitam satve prasidati. So the real solution is to always talk about Krishna, hear about Krishna, remember Krishna. And when Bhagavatam is describing these things, actually they are doing Shravanam and Kirtanam only. Even in the Bhagavatam, when there is an impersonal feature or this universal feature, some discussions are there. Ultimately, they are discussing the glories of Krishna only. So Bhagavatam never deviates from Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the Bhakti Yoga. Although sometimes it may appear that there are discussion of other kinds of yogas. Even if it describes, as we see in the discussion between Kapila Deva and Mother Devahuti, although the discussion appears like this is describing Ashtanga Yoga, but ultimately it is glories of Krishna, it is Shravanam Kirtanam only. So devotees hear about them, they don't go and practice. We are hearing about universal form, we hear about yoga, but after hearing this, we don't go and practice these things. We practice only Shravanam Kirtanam. And when we are hearing this also, about them also, we are just hearing the different glories of the Lord, that how glorious Krishna is and how he is pervaded in this material world through this material energy. That Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina. So that is the ultimate philosophy. That in my unmanifest form is pervaded in this entire universe. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani natvevaham avashishyati. So although everything is matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avasthitah. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So this is the Achintya Bheda Bheda philosophy given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These two shlokas of Bhagavad Gita which describes that Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avasthitihi nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yoga maishwaram. So although I am present in them, still I am not present. So this is inconceivably Krishna is there and not there. Inconceivably we are one with Krishna and different from Krishna. So this is the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Bhuta Bhrinna cha Bhutasto Mamatma Bhuta Bhavanaha. So this is the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Simultaneously Krishna is one and different from his energy. Now these things may appear very philosophical. No, sometimes it is difficult to comprehend and understand, or sometimes it may appear little bit controversial. So for that, Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, Krishnadas Kaviraj Guru Swami describes that Siddhanta Baliya Chitte na kara alas iha haite Krishne lage sudhrida manas. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions. Considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Krishna. So all these discussions, sometimes it may be very, very philosophical, but they should not be neglected. Thinking that this is very high philosophy, I am interested only in discussing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. So one should not neglect to understand the different philosophical conclusions, the glories of Krishna. So here also we see Shukadeva Goswami, there is 7 days time left. So he is not starting with Krishna's appearance. He is starting with this universal form. He is starting with how this material world is created. Even Parikshit Maharaj also, he asked that question, that how this material world is created, how this is maintained. So the devotees are not lazy in understanding the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And this is also not without rasa. This is also Shanta rasa. The discussion of Krishna and appreciating his glories, they constitute Shanta rasa. So first of all, one should appreciate Krishna's glories, and then gradually one can move on to the higher and higher rasas as he makes progress. So when we are still in the mode of passion and ignorance, it is better to stick to understand this philosophy of Krishna consciousness than to jump to the personal pastimes of Krishna. So that will only be detrimental in our progress. So here it is said, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tells Sanatana Goswami, Shastra Yuktye Sunipuna Dridashraddha Yara Uttam Adhikari se Taraye Samsara. A person who is expert in understanding the conclusion of the revealed scriptures and who fully surrenders to the cause of the Lord is actually able to deliver others from the clutches of material existence. So in this connection, it is said that one should approach the Uttam Adhikari. And who is the Uttam Adhikari? He is Shastra Yuktye Sunipuna. So he is expert in the Shastra Yukti. He has thoroughly understood the Shastras. And the outcome of that will be that Dhada Shraddha, his faith becomes very strong. So here we have the Uttam Adhikari Srila Prabhupada. And he is Nipuna in the Shastra Yukti. And he is explaining us all these different Shastric conclusions. So as a disciple, it is our duty to understand all the philosophical conclusions given by Srila Prabhupada, the Uttam Adhikari, and he can deliver the all three worlds, say Taraya Samsara. And these modes of material nature, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, Srila Prabhupada's teachings also we see. The first time when he landed in Boston, so he wrote one poem called Markain Bhagavata Dharma. I think most of us are familiar with this. In that also Prabhupada's first thing when he sees America, the thing which comes in his mind is, this is full of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. As soon as he sees, he was not attracted. Oh, so many buildings are there. Such a material advancement. So as soon as he saw, the thought came to his mind was, this is Rajastamogune era sabai achanna Vasudeva katha ruchi nahe se prasanna. Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. So as soon as Prabhupada went to America, he could see that the people there are fully absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. As we see here in this verse today, the mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. Tabe jadi tava kripa hoye ahetuki, sakali sambhav hoye tumi se kautuki. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. Ki bhave bujhale tar bujhe sai ras. Eta kripa koro prabhu kori nija bash. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? O Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. So this is the mood of Prabhupada when he went to the United States, and he is seeing and he is thinking himself as helpless in making them Krishna conscious. But he has got full faith in Krishna's mercy. Tumhara ichhaye sab hoye maya bash, tumhara ichhaye nash, maya parash. All living entities have come under the control of illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. And the solution which Prabhupada also contemplates there is the same thing. Bhagavater katha se taba avatar dhir hayya shune jadi kane bar bar. So Srimad Bhagavatam, the words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. So just like we read Srimad Bhagavatam, attend Srimad Bhagavatam class every day. So that is the solution for coming out of these modes of material nature, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Shrinvatam swakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtanaha hridi antastaha abhadrani vidhunoti suhrat satam nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhada yaschaye cheta etair anavidham stitam sattve prasidati. So when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, automatically these modes of material nature, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, they subside and we become situated in Sattvaguna and we become joyful. And evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Then we can understand the Bhagavad Tattva or Krishna Tattva. So these things are very important to understand the working of the three modes of material nature. And not only the first time when Prabhupada went to the US, he expressed these things. Even if you see the last lesson, the final lesson of Srila Prabhupada, there is one video where Prabhupada is in his last days of his manifest pastime. So there also Prabhupada is talking about this Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So there also Prabhupada says that one should come out of these modes of material nature of Rajoguna and Tamoguna and be situated in Sattvaguna. So there Prabhupada says this Tamoguna and Rajoguna, they are all very dangerous. One cannot understand one's position. So this is very important that we understand what are these three modes of material nature, how do they function, how they put their influence on us, and what is the solution to come out of these three modes of material nature. The solution is to always remember Krishna, always remember Vishnu. So further in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, generally the impersonalists or monists are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. So those who are Brahmavadis, impersonalist, monist, actually they are influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance. Although they are trying to understand the transcendental subject matter, but still they are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they will be thinking that I am liberated, but actually they are under the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the Lord. So their heart is still polluted because they have not understood the personal feature of the Lord. And after many, many births, they ultimately surrender to Krishna. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of Pantheism. So he is given a chance that you see Krishna like this, in this universe only, and gradually you will come to the understanding of personal feature of the Lord. Now, there are pure devotees also who travel in this material world. They come on the mission of the Lord. So they also interact with this material energy. Now this material energy, the existence of Krishna has got three energies, Sandhini, Samvit and Ladini. These are the three energies of Krishna. And the spiritual world is made up of the Sandhini potency of the Lord. And even this material world is also Sandhini potency of the Lord only. But it's kind of transformed and it is not having the consciousness, the material energy, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego. This is also, it is said that 3/4 of the Sandhini potency is there in the spiritual world and 1/4 is the material world. So there it is conscious. So here the consciousness is not there. So Samvit potency is not there in the matter. Only existence is there. Ultimately it is the one energy of Krishna which is creating both the material world and the spiritual world. And the pure devotee can see everything in relationship with Krishna. So he doesn't make a difference between the material energy and spiritual energy. Prabhupada explains that how an electrical engineer, expert electrical engineer, can use the same electricity for heating and for cooling also. Both are opposite. Heating and cooling both are dead opposite. But an expert engineer can utilize the same electrical energy for both the purposes. So here it is mentioned, everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed with the absolute by an attitude of service. So why this material energy is called material? Because the living entities are trying to utilize it for their own sense gratification. Then it is called as material energy. But if the same energy is used for Krishna's service, then it no longer remains material. It becomes spiritualized. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by this service attitude. So what the pure devotee comes when he descends to this material world? He engages this material energy in the service of Krishna and revives its spiritual nature. So then everything gets spiritualized as soon as it gets connected with Krishna. And the pure devotee knows the art of converting everything into the spiritual existence by this service attitude. When there is a service attitude, nothing remains material. Everything gets spiritualized. And only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. So the pantheistic idea becomes perfect when it is dovetailed in the devotional attitude. And these three modes of material nature, Krishna gives so much of time discussing these three modes of material nature in Bhagavad Gita. There are almost about 100 verses where Krishna is talking about three modes of material nature in Bhagavad Gita. There are totally 700 shlokas in Bhagavad Gita. And out of these 700 shlokas, close to 100 shlokas, Krishna touches upon three modes of material nature. So much it is important to understand this three modes of material nature. One place Krishna says, Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyo bhijayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So it's so important to know how these three modes of material nature is working. Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha. So Purusha is the Supreme Lord and also the living entities, and Prakriti is the material nature, and Gunai saha, and the three modes of material nature. So there is nothing beyond this within this material world. There is a Supreme Lord as Paramatma in everybody's heart. Then there is living entity which is also situated in the heart. And there is this Prakriti, this material body and everything that we see which is made of the material energy. And how this is acting, it is acting under the influence of three modes of material nature. The living entities, they are under the three modes of material nature, and they are being motivated differently by the influence of these three modes of material nature, and they are acting differently, and they are creating different karma phala. They are acting differently and creating different karma phala, and they are enjoying or suffering this karma phala in the future. So one who knows this, ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyo abhijayate. So one who knows this, he will not take birth again. See, the result of studying this and understanding is that we become liberated. Because once you know the facts as it is and how this whole world is working, then immediately for a person there is no other option but to surrender to Krishna and engage in his devotional service. And that devotional service liberates the living entity. So this transcendental knowledge is very, very important. In Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter also, Krishna describes different kinds of sacrifices. And ultimately, he says that all kinds of sacrifices, they culminate in transcendental knowledge. All kinds of austerities, all kinds of tapasya, all kinds of sacrifices, the final result is that one comes to the point of transcendental knowledge. And in the same chapter, further Krishna says that this transcendental knowledge can be very easily attained without going through that process of yajna, different kinds of yajna, different kinds of tapasya. It can be very easily obtained, and that process is that tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. One is you go on performing all this austerity, tapasya, everything and come to the point of knowledge. And another thing is the tattvadarshi, you go to a self-realized soul. Accept him as your spiritual master. You surrender to him, render service to him, and submissively inquire from him. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And upadekshanti te jnanam. That transcendental knowledge which is attained by lot of austerities and tapasya, that self-realized soul can immediately give it to you. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshana. So these are the secrets given in the Bhagavad Gita. This is keys. If you get this key, immediately you can unlock. So all this transcendental knowledge is available in Bhaktivedanta purports. So simply by submissively hearing and rendering service and surrendering to Srila Prabhupada, immediately we can acquire this transcendental knowledge, transcending all the other processes given in the Vedas. So many places Krishna talks about these three modes of material nature. त्रिभिर गुणमयैर भावेर एभिः सर्वमिदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति मामेभ्यः परम अव्ययम्. Deluded by the three modes of nature, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Mam ebhyah param avyayam. So one more thing one has to understand, that these three modes act only on the living entities. They do not act on Krishna. He is the master of the three modes. And the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, they have this misunderstanding that when Krishna comes, he also accepts the body made of three modes of material nature. So this is their misunderstanding, because they have no idea of the transcendental form of Krishna. And when they hear from the Vedic literature different incarnations of Krishna, then they think that this incarnation, Paramasatya is avyakta, it is unmanifest, it is not having any form. But when it comes as an incarnation to this world, it also accepts a body made of these three modes of material nature. So that Krishna is telling in the Bhagavad Gita that those who are deluded by these three modes of material nature, they think that I am also under this influence of these three modes. Param bhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Another place Krishna says that they do not know my superior nature. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhayaha. So those who are less intelligent, the impersonalist, they think that avyaktam vyaktimapannam. So the Paramasatya is avyakta. Now it has taken one vyakti form. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam. But who are they? Manyante mam abuddhayaha. They are all not having pure intelligence. Abuddhaya. They are less intelligent. They think that when I come to this material world, I also take a body made of these three modes of material nature. Param bhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. They do not know my superior nature. And in the second chapter also Krishna says about these three modes. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvando Nitya Satvastho Niryogakshema Atmavan. So the Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. So there are prescriptions for people who are in the mode of ignorance. There are prescriptions for people who are in the mode of passion, and there are prescriptions for those who are in the mode of goodness. But that is not the end. So that Krishna tells in the second chapter that na anyadasti iti vadinaha. So the less intelligent followers of the Vedas, they think that there is nothing beyond this different kinds of worships, different kinds of sacrifices. That is the ultimate thing, and we have to go to the heaven, and there bhoga and aishwarya we have to enjoy. So ultimately they are under the mode of this passion and ignorance only. So those who are Veda Vada Rataha, so those who are so-called followers of the Vedas, they think that these three modes of material nature, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, the Vedas are only talking about these three modes, and we have to go to the higher planetary system and enjoy there. But that is not the ultimate goal of the Vedas. And here Krishna tells Arjuna that you should become free from these three modes of material nature. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna. And when one becomes free from these three modes of material nature, the result will be Nirdvandvaha. He becomes free from these dualities, happiness, distress, pain, pleasure, because these are all different material experiences which the soul is undergoing. and he becomes indifferent to these pains and pleasures and happiness and distress of this material world. And throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that you learn to tolerate these both dualities, both happiness and misery. One should learn to tolerate. Krishna does not say that, although there is different kinds of transcendental bliss the devotee enjoys, but the material happiness and distress, it continues as long as the body exists. And Krishna advises Arjuna that you should learn to tolerate both these happiness and miseries. And one who can tolerate these miseries and happiness both, when there is happiness, one should not get elated, and when there is misery, one should not get depressed. So one who remains equipoised in both happiness and misery, he is called as a yogi, and he is eligible for liberation. And all these things are possible only when we come out of these three modes of material nature. As long as we are in these three modes of material nature, we cannot be nirdvandva, we cannot be nitya sattvastha, niryoga kshema. All these things are not possible unless we come out of these three modes of material nature. And how to come out of these three modes of material nature also, Krishna describes Mamchayo avyabhicharini bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya etan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So one has to serve Krishna, surrender to Krishna. Mamchayo avyabhicharini bhakti yogena sevate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances. One should not fail under any circumstances. Avyabhicharini bhakti yogena sevate. Saha gunan samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Only such person can transcend these three modes of material nature and attain to the stage of this Brahma Bhuta. And what happens when one becomes Brahma Bhuta? Krishna describes in another place, Brahma Bhuta prasanna atma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. So he does not desire anything for himself, and he does not hanker anything for himself. But that does not mean that desiring and hankering goes away. So his desires and hankers for Krishna and Krishna's service. So that is the natural state of the living entity. When the living entity is covered by three modes of material nature, it thinks that I am this body, I am this product of material nature, and it tries to satisfy the bodily demands, the sense gratification. And there is desire and hankering for satisfying these bodily senses due to misidentification with this material body as oneself, especially when one is in the mode of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. In Sattva-guna at least one understands that he is different from this body and he minimizes the demands of the body. But in Rajoguna and Tamoguna there is complete ignorance and too much of passionate activities directed towards the gratifying these material senses. So in Brahma Bhuta state, one neither desires sense gratification and he is not hankering after anything, and he attains to pure devotional service. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. So para bhakti, pure devotional service, one attains when one crosses these three modes of material nature. And the whole organization of the society is also divided according to three modes of material nature. That is a scientific division of the society according to the mode one has acquired. Krishna says, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram api mam vidhi akartaram avyayam. So the whole Vedic literatures are designed and the different rules and regulations are given. The ultimate aim is that one has to become free from or liberated from these three modes of material nature. And how that can happen? Because there are people who are in different modes and everybody cannot come sit and understand Bhagavatam. Everybody is not interested. There are different people who are in different modes. So one system is created called as Varna and Ashrama. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, then Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. a system is created. You put a person into that system, and when he comes out, he gets liberated. So that system is Varnasrama, where according to one's modes, one is given different directions, and if he simply follows that directions, gradually he will get purified. His lower modes will go, he will come to higher modes, he will come to Sattva Guna. From Sattva Guna, he will transcend even Sattva Guna and come to the stage of Brahma Bhuta stage. So, the Brahmanas, they give the guidance because they are in the Sattva Guna, they understand what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is the goal of life. And Kshatriyas, they administer according to the guidance of the Brahmanas. They administer the society in such a way that everybody is acting according to their modes and gradually progressing in spiritual life. So that is called the Pravritti Marga, where one is given the opportunity to gratify their senses in a legal way, in an authorized way. But gradually he comes to the point of realizing that he is not this body and gives up sense gratification and takes to devotional service. That is a gradual process. And there is another process called as Nivritti Marga, where immediately one is told what is truth, that you are not this body, you are eternal Amsha of Krishna, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. You are eternal part and parcel of Krishna, and your nature is to render service. That you cannot leave. Either you are in the mode of goodness, or you are in the mode of ignorance, or you are in the mode of passion. You cannot give up service. You have to keep on doing service. That is the nature. That is the nature of the living entities. But where we apply our attitude of service, according to different modes, I apply my attitude of service on different things. In the mode of ignorance and passion, the same attitude of service, I think that I am this body and these senses are mine, and I have to serve these senses. Whatever senses demand, let me give. So in the mode of ignorance and passion, the same service attitude is polluted, and it causes the living entity to get further entangled in this material world only. And in the mode of goodness, he understands that the senses should be engaged in Krishna's service. And by engaging in Krishna's service, gradually he becomes free from this mode of goodness also and transcends this mode and reaches the stage of beyond these three modes of material nature, that is the Brahma Bhuta stage. So the whole system is created to liberate everyone, every human being, especially it is for the human beings. Animals, they cannot realize God. They don't have the facility. Although the soul is same in the human body and in other species, but only the human body has got the developed intelligence with which they can understand how this world is working. Who is the Supreme Lord? Who am I? What is this nature? What is the three modes of material nature? What is karma? What is the effect of karma? All those things are possible only in the human form of life. In other forms, it is not possible. So therefore, the Varnasrama system Krishna has created, automatically one elevates to the higher and higher modes and ultimately gets liberated. So there are many shlokas in Bhagavatam which describes about three modes of material nature. There is one chapter fully dedicated to three modes of material nature. I think 14th chapter. And also these three modes of material nature are also discussed in 17th and 18th chapter. So it is good that we read and study these three modes of material nature and try to understand as given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. One should not become lazy in understanding the philosophical aspects. Siddhanta baliya chitte nakara alas iha haite Krishne lage sudrida manas. So all these discussions strengthen our Shraddha, and we become more and more advanced in Krishna consciousness. So we'll stop here if there are any questions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.